Phil Atwan. Phil, you're on here from Exchange Resources. He is our 1031 exchange facilitator. I've known Phil for, I don't know, it's been a long time. He's done a lot of classes for me at Atwan College and workshops here. So if you ever have anybody in a 1031 exchange, he will hold their hand, answer their questions, and work with them throughout this transaction. Phil?
Sure, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me here. I want to talk about what's happening in our country in terms of policy making that's affecting what you and I do for a living. Probably a lot of you have heard, like a year ago this month, the White House sent out legislation, a package called the American Families Plan to the Congress for passage. It was a $3 trillion spending bill. And look, I don't know about you, but I don't understand what $1 trillion is. And I read this thing and I can't quote it exactly. I was looking for it in my phone. But this is how it looks. Like if you took $1 million and converted $1 million to million seconds, it would be like 3.5 weeks. That's what 1 million seconds would be. If you would convert $1 billion to 1 billion seconds, how long would 1 billion seconds be? Well, 1 billion seconds would be 3,000 some odd years. Well, what's 1 trillion seconds? Over 31,000 years.
Yeah,
and they want to spell. What's that?
I said, you've already lost me on those numbers. It's just,
It's mind-boggling. And so what they were going to put it, well, what they put into it is, number one, changing the capital gains tax rate on the upper end from 20% cap to 39.6%. That is doubling the capital gains tax. Let me ask you, how many of your clients are going to sell their properties at a 39% tax rate? Number two, first it was the elimination of the 1031 exchange, but then they backed off and they said, no, we're just going to limit it now to $500,000 in capital gain. Well, for those of you who have investor clients, that's nothing. That would greatly reduce the amount of new listings and buyers in the market because of the reduction of the exchange. Number three, how many of you are familiar with the stepped-up basis? You come to my classes, you should know this. The stepped-up basis means is that, for example, I have a property in a trust, right? Our home and stuff is in a trust. So when I die, not if, but when, it goes to my wife and children or whoever my heirs are at not the low tax basis with the high capital gain, but it goes to them at the fair market value of the property the day I die. So if I bought it for 300,000, it's worth 2 million when I die. It goes to them at a $2 million base, which means anything they sell above that 2 million, they pay taxes on. This was created by Congress in 1954. The White House wants to eliminate that. Folks, those are just three things. Now, that bill, when it was given to the House of Representatives back on April 29th, I guess it was, because it was the announcement was on the 28th, maybe it went on the 28th, doesn't really matter. The House has to do one of three things: approve it, reject it, or amplify it, change it. So what they decided to do is they gave the White House a lot of leeway for a lot of things, including, by the way, in case you don't know this, $80 billion of new money to go to the IRS to do two things: get software to catch more people based on prior tax returns compared to these tax returns to see where the monkey business has been handling. And number two, hire a tremendous amount of new agents to go after those people. Now, I'm okay with that part, really. I mean, like, you know, if you're cheating the government, you know, give the Caesar what's Caesar's, right? Yeah, you got to do that. But the bottom line is that the House came back finally after getting this in April. They finally replied in November, and this is what they said: we're going to give you a lot of what you asked for, but we are not going to raise the capital gains tax. We're going to leave real estate as it is at 20% cap, which is a very smart idea for real estate motivation and momentum. Number two, we're not going to eliminate the exchange, nor are we going to reduce the exchange. It will stay as it is. Number three, we will keep the stepped up basis as it is, because we created this to help the American families out when there's a death in the family. So that's where we're at. Now it's sitting with the Senate. The Senate, as you know, we have two people who represent you and me. That would be Senator Dianne Feinstein and Senator Alex Padilla. Both are going with the White House plan. They need to hear from you, and you too. They need to hear from you. If you go to 1031 tax, please write this down. Go to 1031taxreform.com. On the upper right-hand corner, it says take action. If you will just touch that button, type in your name and your address, up will come letters that will be generated to them and the rest of the House of Representatives to say, don't do that. It'll generate a letter, unless you want to write your own letter. Yes. 1031taxreform.com. Folks, NAR is completely backing this up, you and me, because they're looking out for real estate. It's going to hurt our economy, not only as a nation, but for sure as real estate people. Whether you're selling title insurance, whether you're doing inspections or whatever you're doing, escrow, it will affect you in an adverse way. Because this country turns on properties being sold. When properties get sold, you and I make money. When we make money, we pay taxes. And then we go out and we spend. And when we spend, we generate business for the economy around us. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, here's the second thing you should know. You probably already talked about this in your meetings. Senate bill, this is California, 1771. Have you heard of that yet?
Yes.
What is it? I'll tell you what it is. If you don't hold your property for 7 years, California wants to add a 25% tax on your sale.
So it's obnoxious. If you hold it for 7 years.
You have to hold it for 7 years. If you don't,
Bill, I haven't heard of that.
yeah, I'll send you a link.
Okay.
That's what
It's just exploding right now. Pardon me? I don't think it's passed yet, but you know what? Let me tell you, just so you know, I don't know if you heard this, but did you know that California, the legislature, some of these legislature people up in San Jose, came up with legislation to convert the state of California that no more HMOs, no more private insurance, is going to be a 100% socialized medicine state run by the state of California.
Good way to kill people.
So guess what happened? There was enough people that put pressure that the party that generated this put pressure on the guy who brought the bill to yank it, because people were flipping out. They were going to lose their insurance. Folks, if you don't speak up, they're going to do what they want to do, whatever they want to do. Now, the question is, if you're happy with that, then don't do anything. But who said this? I forgot, who was it? Was it not Benjamin Franklin, but what did he say? It's something to the effect that the guy who has good intentions, who does nothing, will accomplish nothing, and you will allow whatever other people want to do, throw their weight around. Now, that's the Phil version. That's not a very good one.
Yeah.
Folks, we got to be vigilant. Now, that's all stuff that's happening, and I thank you for listening to that. You do what you think is right. You know, I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm just telling you, this is happening right now. Okay, what's happening in the exchange world? There's been some issues, and I want to talk about some of them. So number one, I'm not here to give you legal or tax advice. I'm just here to get you in front of new people. Because if you're in front of new people, this is going to be your future, to generate new business. But you don't just generate business by selling. You do it by talking to people about what's important to them. And I can tell you, for the people who own real investment property, not just a primary residence, but an investment property, this is the most number one motivation for owning real estate. And if you don't believe me, just ask them. And you know why I know that so well? Not just because I'm in the 1031 exchange business. And by the way, I've been in our industry now. This is my 40th year this month. 40 years I've been in this. Began in the title insurance end, went from title insurance to the exchange end. And I've been doing exchanges now since 1998. But can we get a farm package
Yes.
for people who own absentee properties who live in other states?
Yes.
Who own property here?
Yes.
Can we get a farm package of anybody who owns a rental property, whether it's a condo or a single family rental, 2 to 4, 5 and above, or any kind of commercial or any type of property, who's
Yes.
owned it for at least 10 years?
Yes.
Can I get amen?
Amen.
That one's a yes.
Amen. All right.
So let me ask you a question. What's holding you back? Don't sell these people. They don't want to be sold. They want to hear about how they can increase their. Doesn't that make sense? If you can talk about something that simple, isn't it nice if I say, here's a lead, this is what you talk to them about, this is a hot button? Just talk. Ask them questions. Would you like that? Well, that's what we're asking you to do. Talk to people who own rentals from a farm package about monthly income. And I'm going to talk to you about what the difference is between these two. Now you can present that to them. That's number one. Next slide. Number two is, I'm going to grab this water bottle because I'm so full of hot air. I'm making my throat dry. Number two is this. Over time, I want it to be worth more. Folks, you know what the biggest regret? Now, we don't know each other that personally. Right? But I know what one of your biggest regrets is outside of your relationships with people or your family, whatever.
Not having bought,
What?
not having bought
Or
selling.
only buying one. You can't believe how many people call me up every day to open new 1031 exchanges nationally. And they'll come, yesterday is a perfect example. This person calls me up and says, yeah, I sold it. I bought it for 500. Now I'm selling it for over $2 million. 39-year-old woman. And you know, I said to her, I said, I bet I know your biggest regret is you wish you had bought just one more. Folks, you start talking about these things that mean most to them, they will respond. Trust me. It's just having fun in a relationship with somebody who owns property as investment. This over time, and you know, look, I've been doing this longer than most. Number one, check this out. I don't want to hear anybody complain about interest rates. When I came into business, interest rates had just dropped to 18.5%. So don't complain about 5. For as far as I'm concerned, that's free money, right? And last time I checked, it's a wonderful write-off because it reduces the amount of taxes I will pay on rent. You'll see that in just a second. So over time, it goes up, it goes down, but when it goes up again, it goes up higher than the previous height. Even when we launched stated income financing, I think I've had too much coffee today. when we brought in stated income financing, what has happened? It falsely created a bubble in the market that crashed and burned. And the experts said that never again in our lifetime will we see the highs of 2005 prices. Really? We'll just stay tuned. So good look what's going to happen when the pandemic hits us. We're at higher than we ever were before. And the stated income loans that are out today come with skin. You got to have a down payment. You have to have some skin in the game. So we are higher, and over time, it just keeps going up. Next slide. Number 3, you got to have a write-off. Now, you may not like what I'm going to say. I'm going to say it anyway. The more you make, the more they take. If you don't believe me, make money. Right? They just don't take on a bigger amount, but they raise the percentage to put you in a higher bracket to pay more because you work like a dog to make money. Does that make sense? You need tax write-offs like depreciation, interest tax write-offs, property tax write-offs, anything you do to the property write-offs, because you need to reduce the income tax you're going to pay on the rents you collect. Make sense? Okay, next slide. So the question is, since these are the number one subjects, topics to talk about, and by the way, I have these wonderful marketing letters we've created. But how many of you will ask for them, much less use them to get in front of people, right? Isn't it, Lauren?
Look at two people.
I knew Chuck.
Yeah.
He wants you to get in front of what? New people. People that you've never met before, not to sell them, not to push your company, but to talk to them about these three topics. So the question is, you want to make a friend? I'll tell you how to make a friend. How do I get more out of my rentals? How do I make my rentals work harder for me so I don't have to? Does that make sense? Am I running for president or something? Maybe Sunday morning in church, somebody said, amen. No, I'm not sure. I don't know. Too much coffee. Next. Each one of you own two properties that you bought a number of years ago, 10 years ago. One's A, the other one's B. I'm going to tell you about your two properties that you bought 10 years ago. Number one, there's the same floor plan with the same square footage, same lot size, same condition, on the same street, maybe even next door to each other, in the same city. There's no difference. They're identical properties. The only difference between, as we compare A versus B, is A has more equity, B has less equity. Remember we talked about getting a farm package on equity, on properties that have been held by the investor for 10 years or longer? I'm going to show you something that afterwards you can pay me $1,000 each, because you will make more commissions just by understanding this. Are you ready for this? The higher the equity, the lower the rate of return on the property. Is that right or wrong?
Yeah, that's right.
Go ahead.
Getting back to your first point, when you started, everybody's objective when they own these properties is that monthly income. And so my objection is, hey, I've owned this for 20 years. And it's given me a couple $1,000s a month. I'm fat and happy. I don't have to do anything. And they're sitting on $1, $2, $3 million that they could exchange into a much better property, but it's that monthly income that
They live off of.
Yeah.
Jared, quit trying to take my thunder away here, would you?
I'm trying to lead you into this.
You're doing a good job. We're going to compare these two. Which property, number one, gives you the higher cash flow? The one with very little debt or the one with a lot of debt? A is very little debt or paid off. B is higher loan to value. Same situation.
So less debt is going to give you more cash flow.
Less debt is good. So A is perfect for you when you retire. How many of you are going to make a killing off of Social Security?
Will it still be there?
Wow, that's a good question. Because I'm hearing murmurs coming out of Washington about
If I have to wait
adjusting
till
it.
90 though.
Good
I don't
luck.
think it's gonna be
Not
there.
so much that, it's just less you're going to get because of all the other assets you own, even though you paid into it. They're going to reward you for not working hard. So don't worry. No, exactly. A is better for cash flow. And when I retire, I need what? Number two, the higher the equity, the lower the rate of return. This has less equity. Can A charge more rent than B? No, it can't. Because rent has nothing to do with how much equity you have in your
Rent has to do
building.
with it.
It's based on the comps
Yeah.
and what the fair market rent is for that property. These are identical properties on the same street, right? A cannot get more rent. This will have a higher return on the equity that's in it. I have less equity, I have less skin in the game. I can get as much rent as A can. By re-leveraging the equity out of A to buy more buildings. More doors. You know what that means, more doors?
Yes.
That means you get paid every month on every door you have. So the more doors you have, I mean, you want to get paid every day, you get 30 doors. You want to get paid once a month, you have one door. You want to get paid once a week, you have 4 doors. Does that make sense? Number 2, which will appreciate faster, A or B?
Appreciation.
The same.
Why? Why?
Because the market value.
Because they're identical properties. So who's going to get a bigger bump on appreciation? This one with less equity or this one with more equity? The less equity is going to give me a higher rate of return on appreciation because I have less skin or less money invested in the property. That means I will make more. Number 3, which property will give me higher tax write-offs?
B.
Why?
Because there's more expenses and there's.
Well, no, their expenses are about the same.
Deduction.
You have that interest rate write-off.
Yeah.
You don't have that with A.
Yeah.
Because it's paid off.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm down to like $9,000 on my mortgage at home. I'm watching that statement every month that comes in, right?
It's time for.
You know what I've noticed also? My deduction of that loan is going down to almost nothing, right? So folks, re-leveraging equity so A can birth new properties, more doors that will pay rent, that will appreciate over time. And number 3, create more tax write-offs is what the client never thought of because they're saying what Durf said. They're just sitting on property where, hey, I bought it for this and now it's worth this. My rents used to be here, now they're here. My property taxes are here, why should I sell? And that's the mentality. But the people who are innovative will either take cash out of this to buy 1 or 2 more buildings or sell the property to create additional doors for these 3 reasons. Next slide. That's re-leveraging for growth. So if I sell the property, you pay a tax, not based on the equity in the building, but on the capital gain, which basically means the sales price minus whatever you bought it for, which will be adjusted each year based on any capital improvements that you put into the building, deducting depreciation, adding closing costs. The difference will be this, whatever this comes up to. That's how it works. I'm here to give you a flavor, like, you know, like yesterday I bought this ice cream. Cookies and cream, but it was that one brand that, I can't think of it. Anyway, it's like extra creamy.
Chemistry.
No, I forget. What's that other one? Not drivers, but I like drivers a lot. I can't believe I can't tell them. I was so impressed with the flavor. I'm just trying to give you a little taste of the flavor, what it looks like. Your job is not to give out this information. Your job is to just point out that when you sell a property, you will pay what? Capital gains taxes. Now, if this is your primary residence, I'm married, filing joint return, they will take how much off this 700? Up to 500,000. If I was single, up to 200. So if I'm married, which I am, and I've lived in it, owned it and lived there for at least 2 years, right? 2 out of the last 5. That means I will now pay taxes on 200.
200.
Make sense? If I'm single, I will pay taxes on 450,000 because I only get 250 off, right? If this was my second home or my vacation home at the water, the desert, up in the mountains, wherever it happens to be, how much do I get off of that? 0. Nothing. If it's my rental property, how much do I get off of that? 0. Nothing. So why should I re-leverage? If the government's going to take 30 to 45% of that.
So you can pay taxes later. Or when you die.
Whenever.
Next slide. Yeah. This is what you pick. Off that number you just saw, this to the IRS. Thank God this is not going to be 39.5. or 6. I hope not. At least. See what the Senate does. Number 2, you have to pay the healthcare tax. Anybody know what that is?
Yeah.
Do you know you pay that on your principal residence as well? It's the law. Anybody know what the healthcare tax is? The Affordable Health Care Act, Obamacare. I don't care what you call it. You pay this. Over 200,000 of gain if you're single. If you're married, filing joint return, over 250. Number 3, California wants their part. Now they want to jack up to 25% if you had it for less than 7 years, right? But this is what the state is today. And then if it's a rental, you pay an additional 4th tax. It's called the depreciation recapture tax. That means all the allowable tax write-off the government gave you to write off, whether you took it or not, you get to pay a tax on the write-off they gave you, whether you took the write-off or not, on your rental or your business use property.
So why do we charge only 5%?
No
I feel like we
kidding,
should get as much as
because
the
it
state
is a
does.
write-off, right? It's a write-off when you sell it. Next slide. So what's a 1031? 1015. What's a 1031? It's a sale and a purchase to re-leverage the equity so you can have more doors that are going to pay your rent. It's a re-leveraging of equity so you can have more properties that will go up in a rising market of inflation. By the way, do you know what people buy? You know we have inflation now? Has anybody been to the market lately? How about the gas station? Restaurant? Do you know what people buy in inflationary times? Hard assets. And one of those hard assets is called,
Real estate.
without a doubt, folks, you have to inflate with something that will also inflate. If you do not, your money just becomes more worthless. It shrinks. You ever put a nice something in the washer and then and you accidentally put it in the dryer and it was this size and now it comes out this size? That's inflation. If you're not if your money isn't in hard assets, you're in trouble. But you can re-leverage, and that's all an exchange is the sale and the purchase, so you can re-leverage, you get more income appreciation tax write-offs to buy better replacement properties in other areas that you want your investments to be in. God bless 1954. Not only because that's the year I was born in, but because now, and everybody knows how old I am, because this is when the government gave us the step-up basis. So when I pass, I go to my heavenly reward, okay? But when I pass, what happens is, since the heavenly blessing is not a reward, I didn't do anything worth getting rewarded for. But the whole point is, your heirs receive the property at the value, at a new basis, based on the value of the date that I died. That is an incredible gift from the United States government to us. Remember that your clients need to talk to who? You,
Or
not me.
tenants.
They're estate planning attorneys to get their estate right. A trust is so little. $2,000, $2,500.
5,000 depending.
I mean, how much is probate for crying out
Oh,
loud?
yeah. You give 25.
You
to
can pay
the
them now.
lawyer.
You remember that Fram commercial? You can pay me now or pay me later. It can cost a lot more if you pay you later. Next slide. This is just goes what we just talked about before. Pass. This is what we talked about. This is what if you want to take a picture of it, you're welcome to. 1031taxreform.com. It's really an important website to talk to the government, to share your opinion in a nice way. Because we have to be respectful of our leaders, whether we agree with them or not. I hope we stay as the United States, not the divided states of America. Next slide. How do I set up an exchange? It would be me? No, you need to put in language in your RPA that will allow you, your client, to bring in a third-party facilitator that will set up the exchange with escrow. So I'll call Sue or Sue will call me, and I hope that you use this zip form. It's called the seller's intent to exchange. Really quickly, just the next slide. This is what it looks like. This is called the SXA form. It's the new form that they updated. with the new RPA.
It's a very simple fill.
Very simple. And you know what else it does for you, Drew? Drew, I can't help. Drew,
I've been called worse.
yeah, I have to. You could put contingency language in this. That gives the seller extra time to find the replacement property. Like a 30-day extension. It's contingent upon them finding a replacement property, maybe approving a physical inspection report, and maybe even approving a prelim.
Yes.
Now there's no cloud on title. So now they can close their sale. He buys you, whether you go with 30-day extension, whether you go 60-day extension, whether you go 15-day extension, but you've got to use this form. And it allows us to be a part of the exchange because let's go backward. It's one slide. I want you to look at the red. No exchange company, whether it's me or somebody else, no 1031. I get a lot of calls on a weekly basis of people who want to set up an exchange and it's too late because escrow has already closed. You can't backdate the docs, folks. I think that's called tax fraud. Right?
Yeah, just to tag on that, Phil, use those forms, those zip forms. You know, in the old days, we always used to write seller, buyer to cooperate with sellers, 1031 exchange, no cost.
And that's okay too.
No.
Put that in the MLS in your
No, no,
agent's
no, no.
private remarks. even.
Yeah, well, we don't write anything anymore.
Okay.
We just use the form.
I think the forms are perfect. In fact, let's go 2 slides. That's the seller's intent, and here is the buyer's intent to exchange. So you put it in your offer on your acquisition. People say to me, Phil, isn't it like bad that a buyer is asking the seller to cooperate with an exchange? You know what they're really cooperating with? Having us there, bringing the money and setting up the documents for the acquisition. It takes nothing away. If anything, it's a better buyer because number one, we will give I can't think of the name of it. We'll give them a document showing the evidence of how much we're holding for that client in terms of cash to go into that
It's a
acquisition.
much better buyer, and they're under a time constraints also.
Absolutely, they have to close.
Yeah.
So your buyer as an exchange is actually better. Next slide. This is really a problem. And I want to clarify this right now, because there's a lot of people that we tell them, I'm sorry, your property doesn't qualify. What makes a property qualify as a 1031 exchange? There's only 3 items that makes a property investment property. Let's define them. Number 1, you charge rent. Here's another one that goes with that. You declare the rent on your income tax return. Do you know that I still get calls with people who say, well, I haven't been declaring the rent. I said, why? Well, I don't want to pay taxes. Oh, so you want to commit tax fraud and not declare the rent, and then you want to do a 1031 exchange, so you don't have to pay the capital gains tax. You know, that's the way people think. By the way, one more thing on this holding for income. This is between them and their CPA, but if they're renting to a relative and that's perfectly allowable, guess what? You have to charge them fair market rent. If they're a relative, your sibling, your kids, your parents, whatever, they have to pay fair market rent. If they are not, the government's going to kick this back. Most likely so will your CPA. So investment is income producing. Now, if you rent to dirt, you can charge them $50 a month. They don't care. But if you're related to dirt, that's a whole different subject. It's got to be fair market rent. Number 2, or if you're not renting it out, and by the way, renting it out can be in a commercial building. It can be a condominium or a single family or whatever. But if you're putting your business in the building, no problem. It qualifies for the 1031 exchange because your business is being utilized in that building. Yes, sir.
Question for you. I do get a lot of calls regarding the 1031. Especially I have a few clients that who wants to purchase a 2 to 4 unit, but they like to leave 1 unit. Those still qualify
That's a
for
really good
1031?
question. And let me go ahead and answer that question right now. As long as the other 3 units
Uh-huh.
are equal or greater than what they sold for, then they could live in that 4th unit. But if it's not, then they can't. Because they can't be
So
a
when it's a
part of.
duplex, if they're gonna leave one in it, then they can't really qualify for 1031.
Well, if they're selling a duplex,
If they're buying a duplex.
if they're buying a duplex and they're gonna live in one of the units, they're really buying the percentage of that unit, assuming that they're equal size unit, a half. So that half has to be equal or greater than what they sold for. That makes sense?
Okay, got it.
Perfect. The second is the business. Number three, believe it or not, is vacant land. Vacant land qualifies. So if I'm selling and doing a 1031 exchange and I'm selling a duplex, could I buy vacant land as a like kind replacement? Yes, because it's on this list. Does that make sense? Can I sell a single family, buy a 12-unit building? Yes, because I'm selling a single family rental that's being held for income, and I'm going to buy a 12-unit building that is also going to be held for income. It qualifies. It's not commercial to commercial, residential to residential. It's investment real estate to investment real estate. Next slide. What doesn't qualify? Your primary residence. You have this for your second home, your vacation home, your business. The business is not exchangeable. The building is that the business is held, but not the goodwill, not the inventory, not the equipment. Well, that is belongs to the business. It's personal property. It's not real property. Exchanges for real property that's held for investment. Flipping? No, flipping is never bought to rent out. It's never bought to house your business in. It's just a business type of deal of which the government says for the most part, no. There are some exceptions. They're very rare, but there are some. Next.
So once the second home and the vacation home becomes like an Airbnb, then it's an investment property, right?
You can, that's very good, Danny. You can convert a second home at the beach to a rental, rented for 2 years. After the 24-month, it's now qualified to be exchanged into other rental property.
It doesn't have to
Even for
be
short-term
month to month,
rental.
it can be short term. It's fine.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
And vice versa.
Yeah, and vice
Because
versa.
it's officially,
What do you
A
mean?
rental.
Sorry, what?
that even if it's a short rental,
Yeah.
but yes, it's officially a rental property.
Can I use this property that I rent out for personal use, like the vacation in it? You know, the government will actually allow you to use it for personal use 14 days a year. Or if you rent it more than 140 days a year, 10% of the time it's rented. So if you rent it Airbnb for 200 days a year, you can actually use it for your personal use for 10% of the 200, which is 20 personal days.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
So that's good. But can I sell maybe every once in a while I'll charge somebody some rent or whatever, but it's primarily there for my vacation. You can have to talk to your CPA about that. I don't think so. Be careful. Next slide. I can buy anywhere in the country.
Mhm.
Can I just be really honest with you here? Because everything I'm telling you is a lie. So, do you know how many people are leaving California?
Oh, yeah. I just came
Could
back
you-
from Nevada
Why?
because.
No, not your
of-
personal reason.
No,
Why?
capital gains tax. I mean, they're
Taxes?
just going. They're
What's the
going
other reason why investors, you should talk to the people I talk to who call me.
Because
more
of
than-
development. It's just
Because
amazing.
the tenant has more rights than the landlord.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And you know what balance is? And you know what one of my favorite movies is? The Karate Kid. Remember? Mr. Miyagi used to tell him, balance, Daniel son, balance. Remember you said that? But remember, well, balance is what you need in society for it to function. The laws do not balance anymore. They're for the tenant and not the owner. And that's between that and taxes and a lot of other reasons why people are moving. 25% of my client base. We're one of the largest independents in the country that does this. My client base is everywhere. I'm watching 2020, 2021, and now 2022. They are taking them out of state because they will treat them better there. And their actual rate of return in terms of their cap rate is higher. And people are motivated to do
Which
this.
is the number one state would you say?
I have a list of number one states. These are where I'm watching these people go to: Florida, Texas, Tennessee, Colorado, Nevada, Arizona, Idaho. Those are the top 8. They're going other places too, but those are the top 8. You asked me a question I didn't answer. I
That's
forgot.
vice versa, meaning if you bought a rental
Right?
and then you decide, you know what, you'd like to live there.
Oh, so did you do a 1031 exchange into this? Or did you just buy it as a rental?
You just bought it as a
So
rental.
was no 1031 exchange to acquire?
1031
So
exchange.
yeah, you can convert it to a personal use.
But if you bought it as a 1031,
That's a whole different story. Because you tax deferred,
okay,
you have to buy it with the intent to hold it for investment and not to convert it into personal. You have to be very careful. You cannot tell your client, yeah, just hold it for 2 years, then convert it into personal use. You know what? The guy who asked you for a favor today is tomorrow's plaintiff in court. Right? He laughs because he knows exactly what I'm talking about, sir. Anywhere in the country you get exchanged. Next slide.
So back on that.
Go ahead.
So if it,
I love
what if, what if
See,
a
this is better than Zoom. Because
What if
Zoom,
it-
I can't do this.
a trust owns it, for example, and let's say it's the Fredericks Family Trust. Can't I rent it?
That's up to your CPA,
Okay.
because there's a problem with that. You're
As
one
long
of the
as they market
trustees,
As long as they
or
market
your
value,
successor trustee of the trust, and that makes you very tied into that trust.
but he's still alive.
Yeah. That's, there, you got some problems. Does that make sense? Be careful. I want to just go over the 2 most used. How are we doing on time, by the way? Okay, okay. Nobody's, oh, maybe one of the phones. Really, for the most part, nobody's phones. Next slide. There's the 2 main exchanges that we use today because this is what is in demand. Number 1, a delayed exchange. What does that mean? So if I'm delayed, it means I'm late. I can't close simultaneously. And as far as the government was concerned, that's all the 1031 exchanges is a consecutive, simultaneous closing, concurrent. That changed when Mr. Starker sued the United States Treasury Department and the IRS. You know what the difference between the US Treasury and the IRS is? The Treasury is who you make your taxes payable to, not to the IRS, right? You get a check back, it's from the US Treasury. The IRS is nothing but the mafia collection arm of the US Treasury Department. That's really it. Do you like this humor or just? I don't know. Okay. So a delayed exchange, he won his case in court. He litigated for 20 years. This is what he came up with. The courts sided with Mr. Starker and that threw the IRS for a loop. So this is the new rules that they came up with back in the 80s. Number 1, you have 180 days from as long as you have your accommodator set up to close your purchase. 180 days is not 6 months. So don't tell your client 6 months because 6 months is technically 183 days, depending on the year.
Is it business days?
No,
All right.
it's calendar days.
All right.
Excellent. He's just baiting that question.
No, I
He
know,
knew
we have
exactly what
issues
it-
with our contracts all the time.
Yeah, no, it's calendar days. By the way, if I close today, what day is day 1 for my 180 days? Who said tomorrow? Somebody's been sitting in my class. It is tomorrow. Today you can rejoice. Tomorrow, you're in trouble. It's day 1. The sands of time are flowing down and you're running out of time. 180 days to close. What if that 180 day lands on a weekend or a holiday like Memorial Day? You get to the next business day. Here's the answer.
No.
We have a couple people from the East Coast here, especially in New York. Here, I'm going to talk in their language. Forget about it. You tell him, forget about it. Yeah, see, he does that well. So you've got to close on that day or before. Number 2, folks, this is so important. This is why this ZIF form is so important. You only have 45 days to name what you're going to buy. Well, that's easy in a market where there's so much inventory and nobody's overbidding and nobody's going above bid or above asking price, right? Ha, ha, ha. So the answer is this is all you have. So if I were you, I'd be in escrow on the purchase before I close that sale. And that's the beauty of having that zip form and going with the language to work with. By the way, some people, oh, I'm afraid the buyer's gonna go. Go to what? They've got the same inventory problem as you will have. The only difference between you and them, you're on a leash of 45 days. How many properties can I name? Under the 3 property rule, up to 3. We'll go over this in a minute. The 3 property rule says I can name 3 properties. I can buy any 1 or 2 of the 3 or all of them. So the next question is, can I buy more than 1 property in an exchange? The answer is yes, as long as it's on your 45-day list. Yeah, trigger happy, huh? As long as it's on your 45-day list before the end of day 45. Can I change that list, by the way? 100 times, but not after day 45. So you got to know what you're going to buy. And you can close those properties, more than 1, and you'll see in just a second how that works. Can I buy first? So I wait till I find what I want, or you know what that is? It's called opportunity knocking on your door. What if Danny calls me up and he says, Phil, you're not going to believe this. I'm walking out from the listing I just took. It's an incredible buy. It's in a great location. It is, very little deferred maintenance on it. This is going to go fast above market. Do you want to look at it? So I go look at it and go, this is the pearl of great price, right? So guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to jump on this thing before anybody else does and get an accepted offer, which means I'm probably going to have to close my purchase before I close my sale. Can I still do a 1031 exchange by closing the purchase first?
Yes.
It's called a,
Reverse exchange.
what does that mean?
You're going backwards.
That means I'm going to close the purchase first, but only through who? The accommodator, because I'm going to have to float money to close the purchase because my sale may not be listed or is an escrow, but it can't close in time. You can do this reverse exchange, secure property and with opportunity for yourself, or wait till you find the right property and then sell, because we know we can sell in this market. Question is, can we buy? And this reverse exchange fixes it, requires upfront cash and or financing in cash. Can we get swing loans, bridge loans, lines of credit, hard money? There's all kinds of opportunity to close. And then when the sale closes, you're allowed to pay off any swing loan, bridge loan, line of credit, or reimburse yourself of any out-of-pocket cash that you have to put into the acquisition because you did a reverse exchange. And if there's still any money left over, we will do a principal pay down on the new acquisition. Does that make sense? A reverse exchange is very popular in markets like this. A lot. And so is the price. It's a lot more because we have to do a lot more. We don't have time to get into all
So
this
the
other
upfront
stuff.
cash is like 20 to 50% then?
But you can put anything you want down as long as you've got a lender to cover the difference, or if you can go in all cash. Let me tell you something. I've not seen in my career, and I've been here since 40 years now, beginning, like I said, with the title industry, and then transitioning into exchanges. I have never seen this much all cash deals. And it used to be they're coming from other countries. They're coming from here. There is more money out there than you could imagine. And if people, you want that property, you'll find a way to get it through this reverse exchange. The fee is more, but it's worth it to them to close a purchase first because we're going to have to hold title to either what they're selling or what they're buying. The government won't let them hold title to both at the same time. So we have to set up a holding corporation, take title of the property. Yes, sir, Dirk.
And touch on those fees, are we still like $1,000 for a regular 1031?
$12.50 for a delayed exchange.
It's amazing how inexpensive it is for a regular exchange. And it's like 5,000 plus on
Used to.
Oh.
It's 8,000.
8.
And by the way, some of our competitors are at 9 to 12 for the same problem.
But the majority of our transactions are going to be regular 1031
Delayed,
exchanges.
without a doubt.
It's very affordable.
Yeah, it is. And let me ask you though, some people say, oh, yeah, I have to close my purchase first. So here's this is my counsel. Let's wait till 2 weeks before anything closes. By then we'll know if you have to go the reverse. How much is the reverse? It's 8,000. Wait a minute, 8,000 compared to 1,250. Are you kidding me? I say, hey, buddy, hold on. Would you pay $7,000 more for that property if it's worth it? I said, I'm not here to convince you of anything. I'm just asking you a question. I guess I would pay $7,000 more. So why don't you do it via this exchange, which will allow you to close it
7,000,
first?
Find it now.
Here's
as
the
opposed
other,
to later.
here's the other thing. If you close that purchase now and you don't do an exchange into it, and you go to close that sale, guess what you're gonna pay? Buku capital gains taxes. Now, how does that $7,000 sound? You know what the answer is? Where do I sign? That's just the way it is. Because, but we want to wait and give them the opportunity to do the delayed exchange, because like them, I would rather pay $1,250 than $8,000. Does that make sense? This is so important. Next slide. This is very important. Next slide. All the cash from the sale has to go into the purchase. All the cash from the sale goes through us, but it has to go into the purchase. Guess what the government allows you to pay off from your sale? Non-recurring. Non-recurring. What's recurring? Property taxes, insurance, HOA fees, cosmetics and improvements to the property. What is non-recurring? These are the only one that's allowed to pay off. Commissions. That would be you. Escrow. It would be next door. Title insurance. You didn't budge. Transfer taxes, city and state transfer taxes, recording fees, exchange fees. That would be me. And any contractual agreement between the seller and the buyer for repair. So if the buyer says to the seller, look, your roof needs help, electrical needs help, dry rot, I see, blah, 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 blah. You either spend the 30 grand or you credit me back 30 grand. Can that happen? The answer is, as long as it's a contractual condition of sale. That means the buyer's asking the seller to do this and the seller concedes. It's a contractual condition, even if it's maintenance. Pretty cool, huh?
So you ask for a remodeled bathroom then?
If you can negotiate it, why not? Next slide. Number 2, all the cash has to go into the acquisition. Let me show you what that looks like. They sell for $1 million, which is now, I think, a piece of junk. Used to be Beverly Hills Mansion, right? Non-recurring closing costs will come out of the proceeds of the sale. That leaves you $930. Guess what your new purchase price has to be? Is it $1 million or is it $930?
930,
Because you have to buy equal or greater. So what is it?
930.
You're right. Because all the cash has to go into the sale. But if you have loans on the property that have to be paid off, guess who does that? Is it escrow or is it title?
Sorry, what was it?
If there's payoff of debt, who pays for that? Escrow or you?
We.
That's right. That's why they have something called a payoff
Demand.
department.
All right, we
Escrow
don't
will
have a
get the
payoff demand.
demands, you will pay the demands
Yes.
off. You know why the title company pays them off? Because they're not going to insure the title unless it's clear.
Yes.
And that's why they're doing
We have
it.
to make sure that this property is free and clear for the new buyer.
Yeah, except for any new
I don't
mortgage
want
that they
any
need for the acquisition, right? Right? So that means your new purchase has to be 930, but if you're paying off the first, the second HELOC, line of credit, whatever, let's say it's 400,000 total payoff, 930 minus 400 leaves you 530. That means you have to reborrow the 400 to buy for 930. That makes sense? That's really important.
So I guess back to your A and B property, now it's better to have a higher loan because you can buy something less and just keep flipping and flipping the new properties.
Yeah, I wouldn't call that word flip. That's not a good word to the exchange industry.
No, but I mean, that way, because we're obviously buying something for lesser value to fix it up and to appreciate it.
Yeah, and then in a few years, as long as they don't raise that, the new tax, for 7 years of holding in California, which is,
So in other words, the more you spend, the less you pay. In a way, I mean, the more, the higher the.
the more you
loan,
can
the more
leverage.
Yeah,
Can I over leverage? When Dirk gets got, that makes me nervous. When, can I over leverage? The answer is yes. I think you can over leverage and I don't recommend that because hard times can certainly come again, right? So you're really exchanging all the cash from the sale, whether it's this or this. And you're also replacing the mortgage debt. That's how you come up with 930. It's really the same as sales price minus non-recurring closing costs, because all that's left is cash and debt paid. Next slide. Let's pass this. Here's a way to pick up new debt. Give me mortgage. Any problem with that?
Not at all.
I didn't think so.
Yes.
Bring in more cash. Did you know when you bring in more cash to the transaction, you are actually reducing the amount of debt you have to replace? And the government's okay with that. So bring in 400,000 of new cash or bring in 100,000 of new cash. Now you just have to reborrow 300 out of the 400 because you put 100,000 of new money from your savings account into the acquisition. The seller can carry back on your behalf. We'll talk about seller carry back another day when your client is selling. That we don't want to see. Assuming the seller's loan is allowable, taking it subject to or any combination of the above to replace your mortgage. So you have to come back in with replacement debt. Next. Annie, you did a good job. We will forward the EMD money on the client's behalf. They just have to ask and sign a letter of authorization for the money to go into the acquisition. We will do that. But if they find the property before the sale closes, we're not holding any money for them. Therefore, they have to put in their own EMD cash. And then they ask, well, can I get it back? The answer is yes. Ask escrow like a week before closing and tell them you want to be reimbursed on your personal EMD that you had to put into for this acquisition. And escrow will do it and it won't be taxable. But only the amount of the EMD that you put into it. But if we're holding the money at that point because the sale is closed, yeah, we will advance the EMD money. Next slide. This is really important, but I don't want to spend a lot of time on it really quickly. If you don't use our company, and I'm not here to push my company, I'm here to push education, but this is what you really have to look for. Number one, where are they putting your money? Folks, did you know that some of the accommodators put the money in a corporate account? You know what happens if your money is in a corporate account of the accommodator and the accommodator goes bankrupt? And don't tell me it never happened.
Isn't that Canadian?
Yeah, you're not supposed to, but they still do it.
It's like escrow.
It really bothers us. Because you're supposed to be, you're supposed to be segregated accounts. Make sure it's in a single client trust account, never commingled. You know why? Because once it goes in that single trust account, guess who has to sign for the money to leave out of the account? The client, the exchanger. We have to have their signature. Never commingled, not in a corporate account. Signed for authorization, bonding, errors and omissions. Be careful, be careful, be careful. There are some very good accommodators. They're really, we're not the only good. But there's some really bad ones too.
So
You have to find this out. Go ahead.
if you're, interviewing companies, for temporary,
Sure.
how are you gonna get to the bottom line?
You ask them these questions.
Yeah,
So you
you do
think-
an interview, you just go with exchange
Yeah.
resource.
I understand, but
Well, see, you know what? He's worth every penny. No, just kidding. So I'm very honored. I sincerely, I am, but this is what we do. You just have to be careful. You just have to be careful because that's your client's money.
Bill's gonna be speaking tomorrow, Thursday, at an event that I planned. In
That's right.
Whittier. So if anybody's interested, it's gonna be a great event at 5 o'clock in Whittier.
It's going to be online?
No, you're going?
No, I am going.
Yeah.
By the way, I live in Whittier, so to
Yeah.
me, it's a great place
So
to
if
go.
anybody's in that area,
But you can,
tomorrow
I
at
think
5
they're putting it online as well.
yeah, online or,
Yeah.
and it's in downtown Whittier, so it's really nice, and there's dinner or drinks after.
Oh, I didn't know that part. Well, that's good to know.
So if anybody's interested.
Two more things very quickly. We don't have a lot of time for this one. We'll come back another time. Must the vesting of the sale be the same vesting of what you're going to buy? In other words, what you're buying, will that have to be the same vesting? The answer is in most situations, but not all. Did you know that you are a number? You're not a name to the government? You know what that's called? Your social security number. What else is it called? The tax ID number. The tax ID number cannot change from sale to purchase. The name could alter because maybe I'm selling in my trust. But let's say the lender will not allow me to take title in the trust. I would have to buy as a husband and wife as community property as an example. That's a complete change of vesting, but is it the same tax ID number? If my wife's and my trust are in our tax ID number or social security number, it's okay to buy now as husband and wife because it's the same social security number. Make sense? So the government's okay with that. There are lots of deviations from this that we can go to. They only take 20, 30 minutes to go through. Let's go to the next one. Can I move into the property? No. I have to buy it with the intent to hold it for investment. But if something changes after 2 years, and it has to change, like what? It's unexpected, unforeseen, or unplanned. Is retirement plan? For the most part, it is. It could be a forced retirement. But health can change. Your spouse can die or divorce you. I mean, there's all kinds of things that can go wrong, right? So if that's the case, then check with the CPA, but not you, because you can't give tax advice and giving them, this is giving them tax advice. So always talk to them, go talk to who? Your CPA. Lastly, I have 17 marketing letters. I do not charge for them. It's part of my relationship, helping agents to create new business. If you want them, I will give them to you, but don't ask me for them if you're not planning on using them. You need a farm package. You need people to talk with because you're not going to get, I believe in hope and I believe in prayer. I really do. But I'm not going to hope and pray that my phone rings. I have to go plant seed so that when the rain comes, it'll cause it to grow and I will have something to harvest. The same is true with your business. If you don't, look, if you plant nothing, you aim at nothing, you get nothing every single time. This is the way it works. Right? Here are different, we just deal with these different questions. They all deal with what? Income, appreciation, tax write-offs. Last slide. We'll pass this. This is just another thing. Thank you, and I mean that sincerely. From the time of Chuck to the time now, I've been very graced to be a part of your company and to talk about this. And I am truly humbled and honored. And I thank you for letting me get my gums here about all this stuff. I really believe that this is going to create.